It was overall a good day by myself, but I wish we could have had the team win.
Do you feel like the ball should have gone to you on that final play?
Yeah, I mean, I always feel like that. As a receiver, you should want the ball, yes, but, sometimes Joe don't see it.
Are you open on the two-point conversion?
Yeah, I'm always open.
Fantasy Football Happy Hour with Matthew Berry, served by Applebee's.
Happy Friday. Welcome to the Fantasy Football Happy Hour. That was Ja'Marr Chase at the top of the show. He drinks for free today, despite the Bengals' heartbreaking loss to the Ravens, 35-34. That man had a historic night, quite frankly, in fantasy football.
He said he's always open.
Yeah,
he is always open.
He
ain't lying. Just to put this in context, by the way, just how brilliant he is. Ja'Marr Chase last night became the first player in NFL history with 3 different games of 50 or more fantasy points in PPR scoring. He became the first player in NFL history to have multiple games of 260 or more receiving yards. He now has 12 career touchdowns of 50 or more yards. That is tied for the second most by a player before turning 25 years old, Jay. It was the 21st best fantasy football game of all time. And here's what's crazy. It wasn't even his best fantasy performance of his career. As you remember, that game against the Chiefs in 2022 in the fantasy playoffs, by the way, 266-3 on 11 receptions, 55.6 fantasy points. Last night against the Ravens was 55.4. So just the second best fantasy game of his career. By the way, proud Fantasy Life investor. I'm thrilled to be in business with the man. Just want to get that out of the way. But in all seriousness, unbelievable performance. Should have won. Bengals got boned.
Yeah.
The Bengals got boned.
Yeah. I thought Zach Taylor was as bad as Ja'Marr Chase was good last night. It's just like, picture Homer Simpson in his nuclear power plant, and he has 2 buttons in front of him, right button and wrong button, and Zach Taylor all night just mashing the wrong button over and over again. What are you doing? What's happening with the timeout situation at the end?
Yeah.
Why are you going for 2 when there's 38 seconds left and the Ravens have 2 timeouts and you're incentivizing them to kick a field goal in that situation, even if you do get the 2? Why, if you're going to go for 2, why is Chase Brown going out of bounds? Just nothing made sense. Why are you throwing deep?
Do you think Zach Taylor called that when he called the play? He said, "Hey, Chase, make sure you go out of bounds."
Well, I think that if you're a coach, you have your team
have them prepared. Yeah, you do.
I
agree.
To do in that situation. That's on the coaching staff.
That's fair.
Why are you throwing deep on 3rd and 2 and 4th and 2 earlier in the game? What is going on? Ja'Marr Chase is open in the middle of the field, so I just thought that they just completely butchered that game. Now they're underdogs to make the playoffs. They should have won. They're up 21-7. Chase Brown fumbles. It was just a mess overall, but Ja'Marr Chase is the thing that I will remember most from the game, naturally. No career highs for Ja'Marr Chase in any category last night.
Insane.
Nothing there. So disappointing effort from him on that front. But the first touchdown in particular, when he just turns on the NOS, like the great late Paul Walker did in Fast and the Furious. He just zooms by everyone. It's quite a sight. So Ja'Marr Chase is magnificent. The rest of his team was not.
Having said all that, even with a bad cut, I'm with you. Listen, I get all that. I think some of those criticisms are justified. I think there's a lot of criticisms that you can hurl at Zach Taylor that are justified. The way the team always starts slow year after year after year, and certainly there's some coaching decisions that I think in hindsight you consider and go like, maybe not. And I agree with you I didn't mind going for 2. I did mind going for 2 with that much time left.
That's the problem.
That's the
go
issue.
For 2. If there's 20 seconds left, go for 2. But there's too much time for Lamar Jackson.
Yes, and considering how well Lamar had moved the ball, considering they have Justin Tucker, considering they had the 2 timeouts, I'm with you there. Having said all that, they should have gotten a real chance to go for 2. Like there were 4 missed calls. That just brutal. There's too much at stake here. Even before we get into fantasy and sports betting. But to your point, the Bengals. This is a game that affects whether they make the playoffs or not.
It's huge.
They would have had they won this game. They're a game. They own the tiebreaker of the Ravens, and they would have been 1 game out behind Baltimore. Now, to your point, it's an uphill.
4-6.
Now they're 4-6, and they've got an uphill battle for them to get into the playoffs. But they got screwed there. I mean, it was a face mask on Joe Burrow. It was a face mask on 2 other offensive linemen, and it was and pass interference on Mike Gesicki. Like there were 4 different opportunities on that play
was
where
another
you could have
hold on the other side
legitimately,
of the line.
right? You
Yes.
could have legitimately thrown a flag, right? And there were 5 different times somebody could have thrown a flag, and you'd go back to the replay like, up, good call.
Yeah.
0 for 5. The refs were 0 for 5 on that
Yes.
play.
It just shows you they won't in that scenario. They won't throw the flag.
Yeah.
But that's not right.
I agree.
I know,
and that's
but
the problem.
Just to bring it back and pin it on Zach Taylor again, like that's going to be part of the calculus. You're on the road. Like you're less likely to get a call that goes that way. And yes, it's not like it's more on the refs and they should have made the call. But again, like just another reason not to go for 2 in that kind of spot because you're going to get mugged. Now the face thing of the hitting the face mask on Joe Burrow, that's the one where like you just got to call that. Like it's very obvious.
Why aren't they
His
getting
helmet
help
spins
on
around.
those?
Yeah. What?
Why aren't they getting help on those? Because we saw this with Sam Darnold.
Why is
Right.
that
Well,
replay assist?
I don't understand that. I don't understand.
Isn't that the point?
Yes, that is in theory the point.
Like, why invent it?
I do not understand how and when replay assist is used. It feels very arbitrary. It feels like sometimes, boom, it immediately comes down,
Right.
and then other times they're just like, out to off. I don't understand it, and it's weird because I'm going to get myself in trouble because NBC is a partner of the NFL. I don't know. It's mind-boggling to me. It is mind-boggling to me given the stakes that are involved and the amount of money that is involved in the NFL. The NFL is a multi-billion-dollar company, like multi-billion-dollar company, and how you can't have and we live in a world where technology allows us and.
Devalued the whole game.
It does, and it was an unbelievable game from start to finish. Like it was amazing. 2 of the stars, 2 of the faces of the NFL going head to head in a division matchup. Like it's everything that fans want. Amazon had to have been thrilled. And
Al Michaels alive and
Al
well, like
Michaels
just so into it.
excited,
Yeah.
finally a game.
Yeah. Good for Al Michaels.
Al's all excited, and then and all anyone's going to be talking about instead of the brilliance of Jamar Chase or the brilliance of Joe Burrow or the brilliance of Lamar Jackson in what is probably another MVP campaign, instead of the brilliance of that, we're talking about the fact that they missed 5 calls, and by the way, that wasn't the only play. They missed calls throughout the game, and you have the technology, you have the ability to make those calls right. There's always going to be some human error, but they could be better.
Yep.
They could be better. Anyway, the fantasy impact here is I'm pouring one out for you. If you woke up this morning and you realized that you were facing Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, Lamar Jackson, or some combination therein, I'm facing him in like about half my leagues. Some combination. Oh, it's of course. Even the leagues like I have Joe Burrow in a handful of leagues. Like I looked, I'm all excited. Facing like Jamar Chase in those leagues, or somebody else had Lamar. Like there's only like 1 league of all the leagues I have where I had Burrow and the other guy has nothing. So anyway, Jamar Chase is very good.
Yeah, fortunately in our league, the League of Our Souls, I have Joe Burrow going up
Yes.
against producer Pete, and I have Burrow. But the bad news for me is that he has Jalen Tolbert and Michael Pittman in his starting lineup. So you're expecting
Fearful.
to take that ground up. And he currently has no one in his second running back slot. He's running empty on that one. So
We're going to see what pops up on waivers on
That
Saturday.
explains the group text of from Pete saying I need a running back. That explains.
And no one wanting to do business with him?
No, yeah.
Pete actually disrespected me in that field. Yeah, he tried sending me somebody for Tyrone Tracy. Like I would ever trade Tyrone Tracy.
Of course. It's outrageous.
Yeah.
It just goes to show he doesn't watch the show.
Clearly not. Why would I ever trade Tyrone Tracy?
Yeah, of course, you would never. Like he's been your guy since he was drafted. You love Tyrone Tracy.
Yeah, I denied the trade immediately.
I don't blame you.
Dontavian Wicks.
Come on.
Like I don't sit here and
Dontavian
listen.
Wicks should be on our waiver wire.
Like I don't sit here and talk about fantasy football 5 days a week. Dontavian Wicks or Tyrone Tracy. Yes, I outed Pete's bad trade.
Yes,
I don't feel bad.
So.
I don't feel bad.
Rightfully so. You know what, Pete? Next time, run that through the trade analyzer on FantasyLife.com. That's
Before
what you should do, Pete.
disrespecting me.
Yeah, it's outrageous.
Anyways.
I got my work cut. I'm playing stupid Dev, and I got my work cut out for me. I got 14 points from Derrick Henry. We'll get to that in a second, but Dev's got a smart Dev. He's got a very good team.
Producer Damien with Jamar Chase and Chase Brown as well, so he's at 78 points. Nice
little start.
He's got 8 players to come. Yeah. Projected for 200 points.
Ridiculous, but it will go into your decision-making process as you head into the weekend. Like if you faced Jamar Chase last night, or Joe Burrow, or Lamar Jackson, or some combination, you need to swing for the fences.
Right.
It will affect how you set your lineup because you can't just. Or, by the way, if you have one of those guys, then you can set your lineup with more floor plays, right? But it does that. There's such outlying fantasy performances from last night with those three guys specifically that it does need to factor into how you approach the weekend when you're setting your lineup.
Yeah,
for
now
sure.
If you've got Calvin Ridley and Khalil Shakir, you probably start Calvin Ridley if you went up against Jamar Chase or whatever, those type of decisions.
Well, and how about the trickle effect of this, Matthew, the big performances? Rashod Bateman has a big night, 6 catches, 54 yards and a touchdown. Mark Andrews has 6 catches, 68 yards and a touchdown. And despite all of that, Deontay Johnson only played 5 snaps. He did nothing in this game.
Yeah, ran only 9 routes. He's gotten 2 targets in 2 games since the trade. And maybe the whole point of Deontay Johnson was just to motivate Rashod Bateman, who earns 8 targets in this one, goes 6 for 54 and a touchdown. Quiet day at the office for Zay Flowers, but just everything was working for the Ravens. I'm not worried about Flowers. Nice to see Andrews. Isaiah Likely was not in the game, was not active for the game, so Andrews 6 for 68 and a touchdown. Starting to look like Mark Andrews of old. Just in terms of from an eye test.
Yeah.
He is not moving as slow. Just felt like, okay, yeah, that's the guy. That's the Mandrews that we remember from his time earlier in Baltimore, friend of the show, Mark Andrews. Targets, catches, yards. It was season highs for him in all those categories for Mark Andrews. It's his first game this year with a 20% or more target share as well, so he's earning targets at a high rate. Again, no Isaiah Likely. I think that helped. But very quietly in 4 of the past 5 games, he has at least 14 fantasy points. He's been the 6th best fantasy tight end on a points per game basis since week 6. And he's probably on somebody's waiver wire that didn't draft him. And whoever drafted him is sitting there going,
Thanks for nothing.
Yeah, thanks for nothing. I'm 3-7. I'm on my way to 3-7 here, and Mark Andrews is on Connor's team.
Well, Deontay Johnson, to your point, went 1 catch for 6 yards, tripped over, and missed a long completion that would have picked up, I think, a first down last night. But the good news is that this morning he tweeted out, "It's always 2 sides to a story."
Yes.
So it's great.
After a great team win.
Yeah. Let the subtweeting begin.
Right. Receivers are just incredible.
Yeah.
By the
Well,
way.
his previous Twitter post, to be fair, was retweeting that Lamar Jackson has the most games in NFL history with a perfect passer rating. So what's going on in Deontay Johnson's mind?
Yeah. Maybe he retweeted it hoping look, I'm going to suck up to Lamar a little bit. Maybe I'll get the ball a little bit more. And then Lamar didn't like it.
Yeah.
And so he's just like, 2 sides,
Two sides.
Yeah, 2 sides to every story. Anyway, things not going well for Deontay Johnson in Baltimore. And I think the nice game for Wallace, but I don't know that there's any.
That's right. Yeah, you're not playing him.
You're not playing him. I think it was just one of those just had a good day at the office. You're moving on here. Only other thing I want to bring up here from the Bengals side of the ball was Chase Brown, who, putting up 22.4 fantasy points in a game on the road at Baltimore in a short week. Ravens, one of the best run defenses in the NFL. And so obviously he gets the short touchdown, but still, this is the most yards from scrimmage and fantasy points by a running back against the Ravens this entire season. Over the last 2 weeks, since Zach Moss has really gotten injured, he's averaging 24.5 fantasy points per game. He's got at least 22 points in each game without Zach Moss. 54 touches, 17% target share, 100% of the team's running back touches. He's an RB1. And a potential league winner down the stretch. He's, it's a good offense that isn't scared to use him. And I know Khalil Herbert will get more in the mix as he gets more familiar, but they seem very committed to. I think Chase Brown has proven that he can have Joe Mixon's workload from last year with more explosiveness.
Yeah. Had the terrible fumble, which may end up determining their season, but they went back to him after that, and he's clearly their best option at the moment. So he's going to continue to get the work. And the fact as well that he's able to, he wasn't very good on the ground. He had 3.2 yards per carry, 42 rushing yards. This is against Baltimore. Yes, but the fact that with that, the fact he has 9 receptions.
The dump-offs were just nonstop.
And also the dump-offs were effective. He was able to keep the chains moving. So, yeah, I think Chase Brown, while he's going to be he's unopposed in the backfield for the most part, and this is a top 5 offense in football.
And in the least shocking news, guys, Derrick Henry scores a touchdown. He scored in every game this season, so not a crazy takeaway there. Let's talk about the Week 10 injuries we're tracking going into the weekend, because this is a pretty significant list. Baker Mayfield with the toe injury. He didn't practice Wednesday or Thursday. Things are looking much more positive as we sit here on a Friday. James Conner with the finger. Tony Pollard with a foot injury. Brian Robinson is dealing with a hamstring. Brian Robinson has kind of been dealing with something for a couple different weeks now and is Mr. Game Time decision. Amari Cooper with a wrist injury. CeeDee Lamb with a shoulder injury, although CeeDee Lamb seems like he's motivated to play through his injury. Michael Pittman's been playing through a back injury. Devontae Smith has a hamstring. Drake London, who left the game with the hip injury in the first half. Kyle Pitts has a hamstring injury. But maybe the biggest injury news is that Christian McCaffrey is expected to make his season debut on Sunday against the Bucs. We got to hear from Kyle Shanahan on CMC's status going into the weekend.
You know, as long as everything goes well, it has in the rehab. So just as long as he doesn't get sore and have setbacks each day with practice, usually if you get that in practice, that means it's going to be worse in the game. So hopefully you can string together 3 days in a row and not have any of those.
If he does look like the Christian of old, does his workload become the workload of old, or is that something that you're going to be more cognizant of?
It definitely could, but it also definitely might not.
Very honest approach from Kyle Shanahan.
Very happy with himself after that.
Yeah, he loved that one. The smile and the head nod.
It wasn't a great gag.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me started. Kyle, I mean, like, he's been I'm going to choose my words carefully. It doesn't feel like the 49ers have been 100% forthcoming about Chris McCaffrey's injury status this entire season.
That's fair, but also it doesn't feel like they really know what is going on and that they're just kind of going to give it a go and see what happens.
Because the Achilles tendonitis,
which
is
it's an odd injury.
It is a very odd injury.
Yeah, it's not like a broken hand.
He flew to Europe to have this looked at.
Which is not usually what happens.
No.
It's a weird thing, and you know what I've heard from people around I've heard from sources, just
licensed physicians.
Yeah, from licensed physicians like Dr. Rogers over here. What I read on the internet from people that view this, from whatever, many miles away. No, in all seriousness, I think Chris McCaffrey has a lot of people around him, and he's a lot of different voices, and trying to figure this out, and so. It's a weird thing where one person told me it's almost like he's getting too much treatment on it as opposed to just letting it sit. Who knows? I have no idea if any of this is true. It's just obviously it's week 10 and we haven't seen him on an NFL field yet, but the hope is that he is going to play this week. I will tell you that in all the leagues I have, Chris McCaffrey, I'm starting him. Now I'm at running back 12 because does he get a full workload? Is there a chance that he gets out there and suddenly leaves the game because it's his first action? Do they get Jordan Mason more involved? We've seen some games where it's not full on, 25 touches for Chris McCaffrey. It's a decent matchup with the Buccaneers, who allow the second most receiving yards per game to opposing running backs. But Jake Croucher, I turn to you. Because the Grape Slappers have Jordan Mason and Christian McCaffrey on their team. What are you doing in the League of Assholes?
I'm starting Christian McCaffrey. They just have to start him. Yeah, he's the guy. And I think as well with McCaffrey.
Are you starting Mason as well? Are you hedging your bets?
No, I'm going to sit Mason. But my team's a juggernaut, so I have lots of options.
Yeah.
So I have the luxury of sitting Jordan Mason. No, I think the thing with McCaffrey is that he is now the most important player in fantasy for the rest of the season. And if you're in a position, I really think any position, I would be trying to trade for Christian McCaffrey just because of the upside. If you're in it to win your league, there is a chance. Everything is within the range of outcomes. He'd be the best player in fantasy the rest of the way. This may be his only game that he plays this season. We just don't know.
Is someone trading him, though? Somebody that's drafted him number 1 overall or, top 3 overall and has waited 10 weeks and finally gets him back and now you're going to, I don't know. I just think that's going to be a tough putt. I think the time to trade for him would have been last week. I certainly admire taking the shot. If somebody's been holding on this whole way, and they've, they picked up Chase Brown or whatever. They've been piecing it together, and they've managed to get themselves to a good spot where they actually don't, quote, need Chris McCaffrey.
Yeah.
And hey, if somebody's willing to give me a perceived value of Chris McCaffrey, because there certainly is risk. If somebody's willing to give me a top 10 overall player for him, I certainly would consider that because there's risk with McCaffrey that isn't there with others.
Who would you rather have, Joe Mixon or Christian McCaffrey? So I'd rather have Christian McCaffrey.
I would rather have Chris McCaffrey it depends on my record.
Yeah.
If I'm the Grape Slappers, if I'm Stupid Dev, and I'm I got a great team. I just need to make sure I maintain. I think I'd rather have Joe Mixon.
Well, I've got both of them, hence my team.
So there you go. Yeah, exactly.
But I would rather. I just think that
I can't wait till you lose to Dev in the finals. By the way,
I think with fantasy, it's you don't get a bump for home field advantage in the
no,
playoffs.
No.
Right.
But my point is if you're sitting there and you're looking at your league, and you're in 5th and 4 teams make the playoffs, or you're 6th, right? And you're I need to make a run here. Then I would try to go for McCaffrey because again, the upside there is so massive, whereas Mixon is sort of more, just a high floor kind of guy.
Yep. I think I'd want McCaffrey over every running back in the league rest of the way except for Saquon Barkley. I'm just worried about Henry and game script. And like even the games like last night, like Henry, just the lack of receiving value and game script going against him can work against him in ways that I just think McCaffrey, there was reasons why he was the number 1 pick overall in fantasy, obviously.
A fully healthy Christian McCaffrey is unbelievable. The question is he fully healthy, and will he be able to stay fully healthy for the remaining, the remainder of the schedule? And you can't tell me there's no risk involved.
No,
and
there's elevated risk.
Elevated risk. So I don't disagree with your take, other than the fact that just to understand that risk. And so my point is I would not want to blow up my team. Like if I'm feeling really good and I'm like, if the playoffs start today, I'm in, and I'm the 2nd seed or whatever, then right. Like I wouldn't trade Joe Mixon for him. You know what I mean? Like I wouldn't trade Derrick Henry for him. And if you're out there shopping for upside running backs and you can't afford Christian McCaffrey, try to make an offer on whoever has Isaiah Pacheco, because he's going to come home soon, and he doesn't have McCaffrey upside, but he has top 10 running back in fantasy upside when he comes back.
Yep.
And some more injury news. NFL Network's Ian Rappaport reported that Trevor Lawrence is unlikely to play in Week 10. It's going to be a Mac Jones week, guys. They have the Vikings on deck. Trevor Lawrence, the exact tweet said that he's weighing the options for the future here from Ian Rappaport. So this sounds like it might not just be this week. I mean, with the way Jacksonville's season has gone, Matthew, there's a world where Trevor Lawrence is shut down. There's
100% a world where that happens. It sounds. I mean, it's interesting because Peterson also, wouldn't comment, wouldn't say officially. I saw a tweet from Mia O'Brien, who covers the team. She does a great job as well, and she's a beat reporter in Jacksonville, and she said that Peterson would not comment whether Lawrence is going to miss the game or not. I think that's a little bit of gamesmanship. So it feels like it will be Mac Jones under center, but just wide range of outcomes for Trevor Lawrence in terms of his health. Might be just a one game. Could be, this is a guy who I remember, I think it was last year, maybe 2 years ago, the Thursday night game where he comes out on a knee brace and we're like, oh, this guy's out for a month.
Like for 32 yards against the Saints.
Against the Saints. Like, he has traditionally been a very tough player. And yes, I think you could sit here and say from a business perspective, right? It's not the Jaguars' year. You're the franchise quarterback. Let's shut it down. On the other hand, there's also an argument where you could say, just seeing how sort of Trevor Lawrence is kind of wired, that you're like, hey, it's been a crappy season, but you know what? I'm not bailing on my guys. I'm not going to just sit in the tub for the next, 2 months of the season. Right. I'm gonna go out there and, like, if my guys are out there, I'm going to go battle as well.
Yep, I get that. I think the thing is, though, is that the past 2 years they've been fighting for the playoffs, and those games have all mattered down the stretch. They're 2-7 this year.
Yeah.
They're not going to make the playoffs. It would behoove him to kind of get a better draft pick for the team that he's, the franchise leader of. And they have a chance to have a top 3, top 4 pick. So, look, the line has moved from Vikings -4 to Vikings -7. So the market has effectively made up its mind that it's going to be Mac Jones. I would expect.
Do you think Mac Jones is 3 points worse than Trevor Lawrence?
Mac Jones isn't great. I think that behind that offensive line
Mac
as well
Jones,
with the Bengals, Mac Jones is one of the better backups in the league.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we have any idea what we're going to get out of Mac Jones, because Mac Jones has shown he can play at the NFL level. Sure. His rookie year, he was good. And then it was such a disaster in New England. I think they just messed with his head. And so I think there's a chance that the rookie year Mac Jones shows back up in a better system. Doug Peterson is a former NFL quarterback. He has been a kind of quarterback whisperer over the years in his career. An Andy guy that came up through Andy Reid. On the other hand, he could just be, they could have Sam Darnold him, Zach Wilson him, and he's just like, he's so messed up.
Could be broken. Yeah,
could be broken.
I think tough spot to be dropped into.
Yep.
Brian Flores.
Right. I mean, it took Darnold how many years to get right?
Yeah. I think the line moving 3 points is less derogatory of Mac Jones and more just a statement that Trevor Lawrence has maybe been better than people have acknowledged this year. Like, Trevor Lawrence, I don't think has been the biggest problem with that team by any stretch.
Sure.
And I think he's been much better lately, notwithstanding jump ball interceptions that he's throwing on first down against the Eagles. Right. They really should have just been taking the short stuff.
I have Mac Jones at QB 25 this week. Like, I don't think you're starting him, certainly not in the Vikings in his first start. You want to see this. But I do think Mac Jones will be, and I also think it's positive that at least we know this, like that Mac Jones is getting all the first team reps all week long.
Yep.
That it's not one of these things that, like, he's having to come in, having gotten 5 pass attempts the entire week, and Lawrence gets injured on the first play. So I think for our purposes, what we care about is, do we think he can get the ball to Brian Thomas? Do we think he can get the ball to Evan Ingram? And I do. So I've had Evan Ingram as a top 5 tight end this week. He's had at least 25% target share in 3 of the 4 games since he returned. And Brian Thomas, 4 straight games with an end zone target. He's had a 20% target share this year. He's too good. And I think game script will work in their favor. To your point, they're now touchdown underdogs at home. They're going to be throwing. They're going to be throwing a lot in this one. Not crazy about Tank Bigsby in this game, but I do think Mac Jones will be effective enough to get Brian Thomas and Evan Ingram. Certainly you lower the expectations here, but if you would normally start them, I would start them again this week.
All right, let's take a look at some top waiver ads going into the weekend. These are guys available in at least 50% of Yahoo leagues. Aaron Rodgers,
should we
top
call
10
this
quarterback.
the Tyler Algier Memorial waiver ad list? Because I feel like he's on this
He
every
is.
week. Him and Jaylen Warren.
If
like
you're
every
lucky
week.
enough to get him. And Jaylen Warren has been that way since, like, it feels like literally forever. We were talking about Jaylen Warren in August before he got hurt.
Yeah.
As
I feel
that
like
kind
last
of
year as
fringy
well.
guy.
Yeah.
Aaron Rodgers, top 10 play against Arizona. Jaylen Warren, a top 30 play. Of course, Tyler Algier, Memorial list, although he's alive and well and still here. He's just on the list all the time. Tajay Spears makes the cut. Xavier Legette in Germany against the Giants is a top 30 wide receiver.
He's got a 22% target share the last 2 weeks. He's scored in 3 of the last 4. Giants don't scare you defensively in the secondary.
What do you think his receiving prop is? It's not my pickup line, so I'm not afraid to say it right now, but I almost use it as a pickup line.
Xavier Legette?
It's around 31.5.
Oh, I was going to say 40. I would have thought like 44.
Right.
Would have been my
I was
guess.
gonna guess
He
42
hasn't
and a
been a big yards guy, but now it's just him in the offense, and he's looked
Against
good.
the Giants, 31.5?
Yeah.
I'm gonna
Deontay
bet
Banks
that.
Island.
Yeah,
Yes.
Deontay Banks Island.
gonna-
Fearful.
I'm going to
The
buy that.
water is warm.
When we bring on Denny, I'm gonna bet that. You know, while you
That's
guys
a
are talking
good
to
looking
Denny.
line.
Yeah. So when they cut to the full screen of Denny, and so I won't be on camera. That'll be
So
that's the
you
secret.
could sneak
I can never be on
bets.
camera.
Yeah. But if I say something, if I repeat something that Denny already said,
Okay, yeah.
that's because I was
You were betting on the
I was
Xavier
on the DraftKings app, betting. We had a good night of betting too, by the way.
You also
Last night.
we'll
We'll talk about that.
Oh yeah, we're gonna get there. You also saw Hunter Henry on that list. That is not the last time we'll talk about Hunter Henry because Denny Carter joins us for what the mainstream media doesn't want you to know.
Oh, did you hear what Mike Williams said? He was like,
No, please.
he was like, I can't remember the exact quote, but he was like, I was hurt during the off season. I wasn't able to practice with Aaron. Aaron likes his guys. And, what happened, if we're being honest with each other, Mike Williams ran one wrong route and he got thrown off the team.
Yep, literally, without exaggeration.
We saw it. Like, I know, look, I'm going to get gaslighted by 100 Jets fans. Okay, that never happened. Aaron Rodgers said that he would take a bullet for Mike Williams. No, I know. I saw what happened. Mike Williams was like, yeah, I ran the wrong route. I'm out. I'm out of the city of New York.
What the mainstream media doesn't want you to know about, we welcome on our friend Denny Carter. Denny, how we doing?
Hey guys, listen, I'm on board with Matthew's take, his curiosity about should the line shift in the Jacksonville game with Mac Jones under center. I'm just asking questions. Maybe it should have gone the other way, the way Trevor Lawrence has been playing lately. That's all I'm saying.
Wow. Yeah. Well, that's what the mainstream sportsbooks don't want you to know about.
Yeah,
That's right.
exactly. And asking questions, that's what you do, Denny. Like the mainstream media just try to force feed us all this BS narrative. They don't want us to know the truth. They don't want us to unearth certain things. But you ask questions. You do it well. You ask a bunch of questions, and I'm curious what you've unearthed this week for us that the mainstream media does not want us to know.
I'm asking questions about Taysom Hill, Matthew, and that's because Taysom Hill last week had 9 touches. He has 4 inside the 10 rushing attempts on the season. That's trails only Alvin Kamara, of course, in that category. That has led to 3 touchdowns for him near the end zone. Last week, Taysom Hill was targeted on 5 times. He caught 4 of those. I don't really know what to say about his usage except for it's pretty good, and you're not going to get a lot of touches from waiver wire tight ends like this. And there's a kind of a simple mathematical formula for when Taysom Hill will pop, and it's this: if Saints injured, then Taysom Hill. And so now they're banged up again. I think it's a Taysom week, guys.
Denny, in this tight end landscape, as you bring up Taysom Hill, how desperate fantasy managers are right now, it's at least curious how nobody talks about Hunter Henry since Drake May has taken over under center. What have things looked like since May has gotten this quarterback job?
Is this a cover-up? Is this a conspiracy to cover this up?
I think it goes all the way to the top. honestly. And, I was texting with Steve Kornacki this week. He didn't text me back for some reason. I don't really know why, but he never got back to me. I wanted to know his take on Hunter Henry, because here's a guy in Hunter Henry who has 9, 6, and 8 targets over his past three games. He leads the Patriots in target share over those 3 games. And now the Patriots go against the Bears in Week 10, 6.5-point underdogs. Okay, they're going to be chasing points. We know that. The Bears are not the worst matchup in the world for tight ends, although ignore anyone who says that the Bears have only given up 1 tight end touchdown on the season. That's patently false, and I can prove otherwise.
Okay, Denny.
All right.
I don't know if you knew this about me, Denny, but as a young boy in Melbourne, Australia, I grew up loving Osi Umenyiora, Matthias Kiwanuka, Corey Webster, Jeremy Shockey, diehard New York Giants fan, go Big Blue,
Right.
blew up. Can you tell me about my quarterback, Denny, Daniel Jones, stewarding the 2-7 New York Giants right now?
Jay, I did know that about you because I've done my research, okay? And I always do my research around here. Daniel Jones, your guy, apparently, is running a lot, and that matters a lot in fantasy, of course. It's kind of a cheat code for quarterback production. Daniel Jones has 37 rushing attempts over the past 5 games, one of the highest totals in the league among quarterbacks. That includes 11 red zone rushes on the season. And he takes on a Panthers team that it just, gives up everything to everyone. Panthers are allowing the 6th most fantasy points per game to quarterbacks, and they're pressuring the passer at one of the lowest rates in the league, guys. Daniel Jones, of course, collapses under pressure. I don't think he's going to see much of that this week. So I think you can somewhat confidently roll with him no matter what the mainstream press says.
Denny, thank you as always for enlightening us on what the mainstream media continues to hide from us. We appreciate it.
You're the only one.
Thanks,
Yeah, you're the only
Keep
one.
fighting
on
the
dark
good
web.
fight, Denny.
I will. I'll never stop.
There you go. Thanks, Denny.
Of course, you can go to NBCSports.com and read more of Denny's work, including the Funnel Defense Report. Fantasy football pregame is back on the road this weekend. The crew is headed to Houston for Lions at Texans, and you can be part of the action by dropping by the Applebee's Bar and Grill at 2959 North Loop West. Doors open at 9:30 a.m. Central Time, so come out. Let us help you with your burning fantasy questions, and grab some food while you're at it.
Yeah, it's free to enter. There's no cover charge or anything like that. So Houston and the surrounding Houston area, show up.
Yeah, come on down. No cover charge. Come down to Club Said. Let's
Yeah,
go, baby.
Exactly. Let's go. Meet my parents. Get on national TV. Lots going on
Cause
Sunday
a scene.
morning. It's
Cause a
always a
ruckus.
fun scene. I'm hoping they show up. I'm hoping that
They will.
I'll just say this. I show up in the way that Pittsburgh showed up, Philadelphia showed up. Like the other cities we've gone to, like people have shown up in a big way. So Houston, the gauntlet has now been thrown at your feet. Let's see what you got.
Coming up right after our first break, we preview some of the biggest games of the weekend. What's on tap is right after this.
Couple things here. One, he actually struggled against the Bengals when they played the first time until he broke off that 51-yarder in overtime. He didn't really get much going. He only had 15 carries for the game, including overtime. And the other thing is that, one, I think the Ravens are going to have explosive success through the air, and they're not going to need Henry as much. And then two, I do think that Burrow and the Bengals are going to be able to move the ball, stay on the field, and not allow the Ravens just to have 40 minutes time of possession. So give me the under on 18.5 rushing.
I'm going to stay on the Ravens as well. I'm taking Lamar Jackson over 233.5 passing yards. First off, he's had 5 straight games with at least 280 passing yards. And against the Bengals, he has to get to 234. The first time he played the Bengals, 348. Yeah, give me the over on 233.5 passing yards for Lamar Jackson.
Sunday Night Football by each of you.
This is on YouTube
Yes,
at Jonathan
it's
B.
quite long, but I will-
7354.
If anyone's wondering how these guys do how they're doing their end of the show bets, they're all pretty good. Here's the midseason tallies for units. Croucher, you are 15-11 plus 2.27 units. If 1 unit placed on every play. Lawrence 5-5, but he is plus 0.92 units because Lawrence takes a lot of underdog money lines, so he's doing well there.
Yep.
I'm 19-11 plus 6.42 units. Matthew, you are 14-10 plus 2.57 units, and Denny, nice little undefeated run, 1-0 plus 0.83 units. Thank you, Jonathan, for this
Connor's
comment.
killing it, but Matthew and Jay are doing good. I like the exclamation point there. By the way, those records were prior to last night, so I'm now 15-10 on the season. And you're 1 win ahead of wherever you were. I forget what your record was. Connor 19-12 still.
The story is Riverboat Rogers over here.
Yeah.
It's been good. I got a little cocky, though. Like, Gesicki anytime touchdown was just,
that was
just when you're
dicey.
feeling it, you're feeling it. And to be fair, we didn't feel that far away from it.
No, I mean, honestly, if he hadn't gotten mugged in the end zone, he would have had a shot. Tanner Hudson ends up getting a touchdown, which should have been your touchdown.
To me, I see Tanner Hudson as a physical extension of Mike Gesicki.
It's basically
without
the same.
the Gesicki sleeves, you could celebrate it early, but then you realize.
But and by the way, I didn't get credit for it in that. But in that video.
Well,
but
let's give yourself credit now.
I'm going to do that right now. Thank you very much, Pat. But in that segment yesterday, I said I like the Bengals +6. I actually think the Bengals got a very good shot at winning this one, but I definitely like the Bengals +6.
That's a lot of points.
That ended up obviously covering and cashing as well. But shout out to Jonathan B.
That was awesome.
Who has randomly out of the blue just been keeping track of all of our bets all season long. So potential fan of the year,
yeah, that's
Jonathan
awesome.
B. Keep it going, keep track as well. We appreciate that. Maybe we can find somewhere on the website or somewhere to put all that up.
Good idea.
Unless we hit a cold streak, and then Jonathan B. will have never heard from you again.
We've had a good year.
We have had a good year. It's been good. You're making money if you've been tailing us as well. So anyway, appreciate you, Jonathan B. And I enjoy the comments on YouTube. So please keep them coming.
All right, comment of the day. Let's keep those rolling and have a really good one next week as well. All right, What's on Tap is brought to you by Bud Light, the official beer sponsor of the NFL. Here's the matchups with the highest point totals going into this weekend. Sundays are easy to enjoy when they are full of football and the fridge is filled with beer. These are the games we're locking in on, starting with the 49ers traveling to Tampa Bay to take on the Bucs. The Niners are 6.5-point favorites here, guys, with all the Bucs injuries. But more importantly, Matthew, the over-under is set at 50 for this game.
Yeah, I mean, you've got two very good offenses, two defenses that have struggled so far this year. Baker is practicing today, by the way. We expect him to go. To me, I think the bigger question, we've already talked about Christian McCaffrey. I think you're starting him. You're obviously starting Debo. I think the Buccaneers running backs are merely flex plays that you hope fall into the end zone. I think Brock Purdy, and I did a radio hit yesterday where I was asked Brock Purdy or Baker Mayfield, and I said Purdy. Yeah. And they were like, really? And I said, well, he's had 2 weeks to prepare. He gets Christian McCaffrey back. He gets Jauan Jennings back. Baker banged up, and, all of his weapons are banged up. Both guys top 10 plays this week, but Purdy over Mayfield for me. I think the big question here is the wide receivers of the 49ers, Jauan Jennings and Ricky Pearsall, guys. And look, I am at wide receiver 33. Here's the positives, right? Obviously, the Buccaneers, they struggle in their secondary, including in the slot. They give the second most yards per game to the slot. 58% of Jauan Jennings' targets this year have come from the slot. So that's somebody where he lines up a lot, and it's an area to attack. Having said that, we don't know how healthy he is. He's missed a bunch of time. It's his first game back where McCaffrey's going to be on the field as well, and we expect, obviously, McCaffrey to touch the ball a lot. Does Ricky Pearsall cut into his targets? I'm at 33, so I just think there's some risk there. He's a flexy, risky kind of guy because the upside's tremendous, but they do have a lot of mouths to feed in San Francisco. I'm not starting Ricky Pearsall. I'm at wide receiver 41, just outside of my top 40. He hasn't played a game this year with Jauan Jennings. So we don't know what Pearsall's target share will be with Jennings out there. Healthy Debo, healthy Kittle, healthy McCaffrey. Again, a lot of mouths to feed.
Yep. Jauan Jennings is set at 38.5 receiving yards on DraftKings, which seems a reasonable number, kind of a middle ground. Now, he could skyrocket over that. He could also go well under that and just be kind of unsighted. So I agree. Just with all the uncertainty, like if you were to order the receiving priorities on the team, like it's clearly Kittle and Debo as tier 1, and then McCaffrey might even be ahead of Jauan Jennings. That wouldn't be shocking. And then Pearsall as well. So just a lot of uncertainty, a lot of upside, but a lot of uncertainty. So probably go elsewhere if you can.
Our next game has an even higher total. Dolphins at Rams. 50.5 is the point total for this one. The Rams are favored by just 1 point here, Jay. But when you look at the Miami side of things, what do you do with Tyreek Hill right now? Do you just kind of hold on and hope for the best considering where you drafted him?
I think so. I'm not sure. Like right now, you'd be selling Tyreek. at his lowest point, really. And to me, the concern with Tyreek, it's not so much the yards, where he's been 72, 80 the past 2 weeks since Tua came back. It's the lack of targets, where he's only had 14 targets the past 2 weeks. This was a guy who last year was consistently seeing targets 12, 13, 14. He was an absolute weapon, and I just wonder that, he's been on the injury report consistently. He's on the other side of 30, whether this has just kind of piled up, and he's still an elite wide receiver, but he's perhaps not the best wide receiver in football playing at that level.
I have him at wide receiver 13. Look, there's cause for optimism here, right? It's a nice matchup with the Rams, right? No team allows more yards per reception to wide receivers than the LA Rams. They give up 15.6, right? So they allow these big plays. They allow these deep passes. They've allowed the third most yards in the NFL on deep passes, targets that are 15 or yards more downfield. So that plays into Tyreek Hill's skill set. But to your point, he's got a 21% target share since Tua return. Like last year, that was 33%. Right? He's had one game this year, literally one game. This is week 1 with more than 14 fantasy points. This is the guy that went in the top 5 of every fantasy draft out there. So he's a wide receiver 2, not the wide receiver 1 you drafted him to be. But if there is a week 2 for him to get going again, it feels like this week, given the matchup with the Rams, just because they do struggle there. But other than Tyreek Hill and Devon Achane, I don't feel good about any Dolphin. I'm not starting Waddle,
right.
And I don't love Tua. You know,
maybe Mostert scores.
Yeah, maybe Mostert gets in the end zone, but you don't feel good about that.
No, I don't think. Jaylen Waddle, his receptions prop is 3.5.
That's crazy.
You think about what he was doing back in his rookie year. He set a 42.5 receiving yards
shocking.
in a super favorable matchup. Without weather against the suspect defense, the fact that Jaylen Waddle's completely unsighted against Buffalo until effectively the final drive of the game where he scores that touchdown and then loses 23 yards on the pitch play at the end. So is there something wrong with him physically? It's just the offense? Has he just gotten worse at football? What's going on with
I think this offense is just a mess, right? And yes, they're scoring points with Tua back under center, but it doesn't feel like they have the same rhythm and flow as they used to. They're throwing the ball to Jonnu Smith a lot too, designed throws to Jonnu Smith. So there's a lot of problems. This offensive line's in bad shape too. I think Jared Verse and Braden Fisk are going to have a big day for the Rams pass rush, which doesn't make you feel better about the non-Tyreek Hill options.
Correct. Yeah. I agree with that 100%.
It just feels anecdotally that it's a lot more short stuff, a lot less of those kind of deep Jaylen Waddle crosses over the middle of the field.
Which is his game.
Yes. And I wonder if that's just, the combination of the offensive line, meaning that they need to get the ball out quicker and they already got it out really quickly. Tua as well, just kind of getting reaccustomed. Tua hasn't played 3 weeks in a row this season yet. So I just wonder if all those factors, there still has to be a lot of upside in Jaylen Waddle. He has so much talent, but it is bizarre and a huge red flag that both him and Tyreek just haven't been able to get going.
Yeah. I wonder if Mike McDaniel's on the hot seat. You know what I mean? His name hasn't come up, right? But sometimes you see this with coaches where they raise the expectations. They come and they do a great job. And the Dolphins were a mess before he showed up. And then they sort of raise the expectations, but then they haven't gotten past that. And you can sit here and say well, Tua's been hurt and that kind of stuff, but still, they've underperformed. They're 2-7, right? And maybe that's on the general manager as well for not having better backups, and
which is another issue.
Another issue as well. But you just wonder, the Dolphins generally are not one of those teams that do a lot of turnover. Stephen Ross is generally as an owner has been fairly patient over the years, but just sort of wonder I don't know. If they finish the year with 4 wins.
Yeah. To me, the Colts game was the big indictment on McDonald because Tyreek Hill had 1 catch. How in any NFL game can Tyreek Hill only have 1 catch? He had 2 targets in that game. That to me, that's just so bizarre. I will never forget with Mike McDaniel, how in that playoff game against Buffalo, how they just couldn't get the plays in to Scarlett Thompson. Right. That was the first red flag. It's how does this keep happening? Why can't we get the plays in? How is this not working? So I don't know. By all accounts, the scheme is magnificent. He's a great offensive mind, but just something seems to have gone wrong.
Yeah, I don't think it's a lock that he's back. The thing with the Dolphins is they're in the red in the salary cap after the season. The red.
Yeah.
So
they went all in on this.
This was the year. And you could retool, but there was big expectations this year, and they're not even. The Tua injury just completely derailed the season. I don't know if that's a good enough excuse, honestly, when you're that in on a roster.
The offense looked completely just non-functional when Tua was out in ways that it doesn't really make sense why it looked that bad.
I mean, it's not a fair comparison, but I mean, the Vikings went into the season expecting J.J. McCarthy to be their starter, and Sam Darnold was the backup, and now they
had a great plan,
and that They had a great plan. I mean, even the Colts, right? I mean, I get that Joe Flacco was embarrassing on Sunday night, but the Colts are still in the playoff hunt, right? You know, Richardson's been bad this year, and still, but they've schemed up Joe Flacco enough that they're still in the playoff hunt.
Yep.
So I mean, there's just
what it ultimately comes down to. There was 4 weeks that Tua was out, and they scored 40 points in 4 weeks against middling defenses. And some of those games were like the Colts in a dome to score 10 points in that game. It was just, very disappointing season from the Dolphins. They've had injuries, like they're missing Jalen Phillips and Bradley Chubb, their 2 best edge rushers, but still, like the defense hasn't been the issue. The defense has been, middle of the pack fine. This is supposed to be a great offense.
Yeah. Our final game here, guys. The Lions are favored by 3.5 points at Houston, where you guys are going to be for fantasy football pregame. The over-under is 48.5. Matthew, can you start Jameson Williams in this game?
No, you cannot. There you go. Did you want me to elaborate on that? Fine, I will elaborate on that. The 4 games prior to his suspension, he had an 11% target share. He had 3 or fewer receptions in each one of those games. Week 2 is the last time Jameson Williams saw an end zone target. We don't know what, he's been out for 2 games with the suspension, and the Lions offense hasn't missed a beat. The Texans are, by the way, when you think about them defensively, over the last month, they're 12th against the run. They're 5th against the pass. Like, that's a really good secondary that they have in Houston. Like, the defense overall is good. But I would expect on the road, on Sunday night, prime time, on NBC and Peacock, I'm a company man, that I think what Detroit wants to do, which is what they normally want to do, they're going to run the ball. I think this is a big David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs game. Yes, Amon-Ra St. Brown will get his looks, but I think they're going to try to run the ball against the Texans, and obviously we know what Houston wants to do, especially because we don't expect Nico Collins on the other side of the ball. It's really only Tank Dell offensively. They're going to try to run the ball with Joe Mixon. So, we expect – I think this is I'd probably take the under in this game at 48.5. Primetime unders just in general, last night notwithstanding. But you know what I mean? Like, this feels like a run-heavy game on both sides of the ball.
Yep. I think the biggest weakness of the Houston defense is they give up a lot of explosive runs. And what is the Detroit Lions, what is their whole ethos built around? It's generating explosives on the ground. Yeah. So I suspect that is probably how this is going to play out. Now, on the other side of the ball, the Houston offense just isn't very good at the moment. It just hasn't been very effective really all season long in ways that haven't really made sense. And now Stephon Diggs out, Nico Collins, huge question mark with his practice status. And they're banged up on the offensive line too. So I think they're going to struggle to score. And then on the other side, I think the Lions will be very run heavy. There's just so many mouths on that Lions offense now. Even guys like Tim Patrick. Tim Patrick's good. He needs to be involved in some way.
Yeah, I mean, Sam Laporta can't get more than a 10% target share, and he's Sam Laporta.
Amon-Ra St. Brown has these games where he has 1 catch.
Yeah,
they're comfortably in control.
Yes.
That's what's crazy about it.
It is. I mean, they're just... Anyway, so I have Jameson Williams outside my top 40. No, I'm not starting him. I think in this game, you're starting the usual suspects. I do think you can start Tank Dell. You're starting Joe Mixon. Not crazy about C.J. Stroud, obviously, but you're starting the Lions running backs, Amon-Ra St. Brown. You probably have to start Laporta again just because he's a tight end, but you don't feel great about it. And then Goff is just one of those, what other choices do you have? I think he's a low-end QB1, high-end QB2 this week. And that's where I have the range for him.
That'll do it for What's on Tap, presented by Bud Light. Easy to drink, easy to enjoy. Applebee's is doing their part to honor those who have served our country on Veterans Day. Nice job, Applebee's.
They've done this for years. I actually wrote about this last year for my Love Hate.
17 straight.
Yeah, it's one of the great things they do. If you are a veteran or an active duty military, come to Applebee's on Veterans Day and get a free meal.
That's right.
Right?
Yep. All veterans and active duty military can enjoy a free meal this Monday at your nearest Applebee's. You can choose from 7 of Applebee's popular entrees for their free lunch or dinner, including a chicken tender platter or a 6-ounce top sirloin, and add to the over 11.7 million meals Applebee's has contributed.
It's become this tradition. I talked to some general managers around Applebee's, and veterans in the area will come and they'll trade stories and they'll stay for a decent amount of the day, and it's a community thing. It's not just about hey, I want some free food. It's a real coming together of people that have served our country so honorably. So thank you to Applebee. Thank you to veterans. It is a great program that they have.
We're taking our last break. When we're back, it's last call. We got our pickup lines for Matthew, Jay and I's best bets for the weekend right after this. DraftKings Sportsbook is the #1 place to bet touchdowns, and new customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets instantly. Download the app and use promo code Berry when you sign up. DraftKings Sportsbook. The crowd is yours.
The crowd is yours. It's yours. How can it be mine when it's yours?
It's time for last call, so we could put the crown on your head.
Yes.
Pickup lines effectiveness. I've hit a skid here, guys. I'm 3-3.
You're
Jay's
3-3.
4-2. Nice job, Jay.
4-2.
Not sure that's been updated.
And you know what's interesting is like we should keep stats of like so.
That's fair, actually.
So Jay, I picked you
Week
3
10.
times and you're 4-2, but how many times have I correctly picked?
Curious.
You know, like I picked the right one, or that when I picked a bet that it is cash. One of the ones we should keep track of that.
What do you got for Mr. Matthew today?
Okay.
By the way, that doesn't make sense though. It says after week 9, I picked you 3 times and you 3 times, but that's only 6.
Yes. And I only missed one Friday.
Why? There's one Friday I missed.
Oh, you missed a Friday?
I missed a Friday.
I missed a Friday.
Maybe that was it.
Maybe that's
the Friday that I was in
That's the
Alabama
math.
visiting my kid for Parents Weekend. I missed that.
I'm taking Justin Herbert over 226.5 passing yards. Mainstream media doesn't want you to know that Justin Herbert throws the football now. Coming out of the
Yes.
bye, he's gone over 4 straight times, and he's averaging 287 passing yards per game. By my math, that is 60 yards higher than this line.
Very nice.
Titans have an elite run defense. Pass defense is okay, but not as good. I just think that the market hasn't adjusted yet to how much Justin Herbert is throwing the ball.
All right, Matthew. I am taking the Vikings first half spread. That's -3.5. And I was taking this when Trevor Lawrence was still in play, but now it's Mac Jones. Jacksonville, over their last 4 games, they're averaging less than 9 points in the first half. They don't score points in the first half. They score a lot of garbage points in the second half. I think the Vikings cover 3.5 in the first half. I love Kevin O'Connell's scripts with Sam Darnold to open the game. Justin Jefferson's going to go nuclear. Brian Flores pass rush against Mac Jones. Not a good day for Jacksonville ahead.
So it's what the first half is 3.5.
3.5.
Ooh, boy, that's a good one too. These are both really good bets. I agree though with
Herbert's line's really low.
That's really low,
yeah.
and they're at home against Tennessee.
I was a little jealous when I
I'm
heard
going
that.
home with Jay,
Yeah, I was a
but I'm
little
betting
jealous.
that too. I'm
Yeah.
betting that as well. I really like that. The Leggett line is crazy too.
I wanted to take that, but I used him for a pickup lines before, so I tried to spread the wealth.
I appreciate that.
back to
I
the-
appreciate
Yes.
that. But I'm betting both those. I like both those. So Jonathan B, make note of that. Make note of the pickup lines as well.
Yes.
That should go into the overall record.
Fully loaded.
Yeah,
Let's
maybe
get him home.
Maybe Jonathan B will keep track of if I correctly pick the right pickup
Putting a lot of
line.
pressure on him, but he's built
listen,
for it.
Hey, Houston, let's see you on Sunday at the Applebee's near the Galleria. It's closing time. You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. For Jay and Connor, Houston, we're coming to you. We'll see you Sunday morning. Peace out. Hey, it's Matthew Berry from NBCSports.com and RotorWorld.com, and I want to thank you so much for watching whatever it is you just watched, or if nothing else, being too lazy to click out of the autoplay after this video started, after whatever it is you actually wanted to watch finished. But now that you're here, I'd like to take a moment here to ask you respectfully now, okay? I'm asking you respectfully to subscribe to the NFL on NBC YouTube channel. You'll get the latest Roto-World fantasy news headlines, all sorts of great shows, including my own Fantasy Football Happy Hour. So go subscribe now. Again, I'm asking respectfully.